Hey, everybody, Max Boltman here alongside the Athletics' Corey Pronman and Scott Wheeler for another episode of the Athletic Hockey Show Prospect Series. Fellas, we are in the dog days of the offseason here. We do have the World Junior Summer Showcase coming up. We do have the Holinka coming up. That is all very much on the horizon. But this is the time of year where I think we like to have a little bit of fun. We like to look too far ahead into the future. And that's what we're going to do today with the 2028 World Cup preview here. Now, I know we don't know. There's a lot that's going to change between now and then. But here I think is the value of this, right? We talked about the Olympics long enough, I think, for people to have a good feel for what we think of the kind of broad player pools. But in the wake of the Olympics, I think there are still a couple spots that always become really interesting. And these become good snapshots of where we stand at this moment in time. They become good windows into what are the big debates going to be. And I think that's what we're looking for today, specifically on Team Canada and on the U.S. I'm sorry to our Swedish, Finnish, Czech listeners who would want to hear similar things on those teams. We're going to stick to USA and Canada today. And we're going to start with Team Canada. Team Canada probably was the best team at the 2026 Olympics. Of course, did not get the job done in the gold medal game against Team USA. But it poses a really interesting question, Corey, of like, how do you view this as Team Canada's management? Do you look at this as a situation where, hey, this is what we got, we're going to kind of repeat it? Or do you look at this and say, well, we didn't get the job done, we got to make some changes?
Probably a little bit of both. I still think you thought like the team looked very good, and especially in the gold medal game, they dominated, possession, scoring chances. But also, I think too, they compared to the U.S., a lot of their core guys are going to get up there in age. You think of guys like Mark Stone or Crosby. Depends, whether he's still playing in 2 years from now. And I think there's going to have to be a lot of interesting conversations with Team Canada, about some of the guys that they brought, and whether I don't think there'll be wholesale changes, but I think you're going to see, especially on the forward front, I think you'll see a couple of players swapped out.
All right, so let's kind of go through that. I mean, we did a little bit of pre-show work here to figure out where we don't need to spend a lot of time. And no surprise to anybody, we're not going to debate Connor McDavid, Macklin Celebrini, or Nathan McKinnon today. We're also not going to debate Mitch Marner, Sidney Crosby, Braden Point, and Brandon Hagel today, because and Nick Suzuki for that matter. Right? I don't think any of us raised any objections to those guys being in the mix. That being said, there are some spots worth us discussing. Tom Wilson, Sam Bennett, Anthony Cirelli. These are guys from the Olympic team that I think as we did our pre-show work, we had some back and forth about. On the flip side, there are some rising young players. No surprise. Connor Bedard, one of those. Wyatt Johnston, one of those. Seth Jarvis. And he was actually on the team already, so I should have mentioned him in the previous group. But also Logan Stankoven, his Carolina Hurricanes teammate. So for that group of 7 players,
and Dylan Genther.
That's right. Yeah. Another up and coming scorer, 40 goals last year for the Utah Math. For those 8 players, what do we have? 3 spots there? My math is correct.
Correct. Yep. Three spots for 6 players.
All right. So let's start at the center position and with Anthony Cirelli, because this is one that to me, I would leave as is. And I know, Scott, you disagree.
Yes, Cirelli, Wilson, and Bennett. I'm not convinced that any of the 3 of those players are going to be on the team. Wilson obviously is coming off of 2 back-to-back career years, but I think 2 years from now, really it's a year and a half from now, but a year and a half from now, I'm just not convinced that Tom Wilson's going to be as important a player frankly, even within the Washington organization, with the additions of Jordan Kyrou and the Protest brothers. And I just have some doubts about Wilson's effectiveness to play that same role again 2 years from now. Bennett, I think that ship will have sailed a year and a half from now. Cirelli's an interesting one. Cirelli feels like the kind of prototypical fourth line center. He's played the checking role. He's been a Selke candidate. I could be talked into Cirelli. I'm not sure I could be talked into Wilson or Bennett 2 years from now.
All right, so here's my case on Cirelli. Is each of the last 2 years, and if this was an all-star team, Anthony Cirelli doesn't have the star power, obviously, to be on it. But top 3 for the Selke each of the last 2 years. Where are you going to find a better checking center, specifically for the fourth line? And I know, like, the way we first mapped it out, I think we had him on the third line and Nick Suzuki on the fourth. Nick Suzuki's a 100-point player and the Selke winner. I'm putting Nick Suzuki on the third line there. So I'm looking for a 4C here. And what do I want from a 4C, if not one of the 3 best defensive centers in hockey?
What if a year and a half from now, Wyatt Johnston is one of the 4 or 5 best defensive centers in hockey and is giving you 80 points instead of 50 points? Like what? That's the case that I would make.
If that happens, then that would change a lot. But where things stand today, like Wyatt Johnston has never received 1 Selke vote. His expected goals against last year on a really good Dallas team was 2.9 with him on the ice. Like he is definitely in a different stratosphere of producer than Cirelli. But like I just haven't like Wyatt Johnston is going to be an excellent 2-way center. I don't doubt that he's going to get Selke votes throughout his career. But as we sit here today, to say that a year and a half from now he's just going to be already where Anthony Cirelli is like it just seems like more of a leap to me than I'm willing to concede, I guess.
I think you have to consider the ability to contribute offensively, though. Like I would worry that in that role, Cirelli's a bit of a black hole.
10-minute a night, like 12-minute a night center, like that you're hoping for offense.
I think yes. What Canada needed more offense in big moments in this Olympics. Like you have to consider offense everywhere in the lineup in best on best, I think.
You do. And it's always going to be the push and pull, Corey, because when you see a 2-1 game, you can look at it either way. You can look at it how Scott is saying, and you could say, look, you needed 1 more goal. You needed more offense. You can also look at it the other way and say, there's not much offense to be had by any of these all-star players. If Nathan McKinnon and Macklin Celebrini and Connor McDavid aren't scoring, does that tell you that the more important risk profile or more important kind of profile is minimizing the chance you're going to give something up to your opponent?
Yeah, I mean, if you replay that game and Cirelli, who wasn't in the game, was there, I'm not sure, like, him, especially if they're down a goal, he's getting maybe 1 or 2 shifts there in the third period, like late in the third period especially. Like,
yep.
I just don't know. It's just this is the nature of the exercise where we're going to be arguing about third pair defensemen and fourth line forwards. I just don't know if that's going to move the needle, but I also don't think you want McDavid or Crosby killing penalties for this team either. So that's why I would my lean is Cirelli, and again, it's for a fourth line center role. I think he's just more of a natural fit.
All right. So where do we want to put that? Are we making a projection today, or are we just having the debate?
I think we're making a projection. So we're going to vote here.
I'm voting Cirelli.
And so am I. So, sorry, Scott.
It's okay. I'll make the case again for Johnston over Bennett and Wilson. There's still
we
a
put centers on the wings.
There's still a path onto this roster for Wyatt.
I agree with that. All right, let's go to another one. And we said 6 for 3 or 6 guys for 3 spots. I think it is 8 for 4 as I map this all out. We got spots here taken up by McDavid, Celebrini, McKinnon, Marner, Crosby, Suzuki, Point, Hagel. That's 8 guys. We need to get to 12. So we got 4 spots to fill. And the names we're considering, again, are Wyatt Johnston, Connor Bedard, Seth Jarvis, Tom Wilson, Anthony Cirelli, Sam Bennett,
Dylan Genther.
So is 7 for 4?
7
and
for
then,
4.
And then we just did Johnston and Cirelli kind of thing. So that was one of the
Cirelli
spots.
was one of the spots.
So Cirelli's on the team now.
All right, so Cirelli's on our team. Let's go next to the big guys. And the physicality of the 4 nations dominated a lot of the conversation leading up to the Olympics, right? What we saw from the Tkachuk brothers, what we saw from Team Canada in the U.S. in those rivalry games. And having seen the Olympics now, like I think it's fair to say, Scott, that the pure physicality, the brutishness, the fighting, obviously was not a huge factor in the Olympics.
No, it wasn't. And I will get to the USA roster after, but I'm not even convinced if Brady Tkachuk doesn't turn his play around after the way he played down the stretch with Ottawa, that Brady Tkachuk's necessarily a lock a couple of years from now to be on Team USA. So is it a factor? Absolutely. Are the games at the World Cup maybe going to play a little bit differently than the Olympics as well? That's entirely possible. We saw that at the 4 nations. Maybe you do build your roster a little bit differently, although I do think everything will be with the Olympics in the back of your mind, even at the World Cup. But Wilson, again, another guy who's going to be in his mid-30s at that point. I'm just not sure whether the pace will be there. I'm just not sure whether he's got enough juice to make the contributions that he made this time around. He was a fine player for them in the Olympics. Will he be a fine player for them 2 years from now relative to what I think Wyatt Johnston can contribute, or what I think a Connor Bedard can contribute, or I just don't see it. Like you've in Suzuki and Hagel and Cirelli, like you've got in Point,
Stankoven.
even in Crosby, like you've got guys who can play at the bottom of your lineup. I like Johnston and Bedard to play in a real role and be a part of this team. And frankly, I just think they're going to be better, not just better players, maybe significantly better players than Bennett and Wilson a year and a half from now.
The Bennett one I kind of buy. Like it's going to be already 3-4 years removed from his Conn Smythe run. Like it's like he'll need to have some really good years to be in the mix there. The Wilson one is tough because whatever you think of the player, I think he's a really good player, and where he's going to be in 2 years, it's fair to say that in the league there's something mythical about him, right? Like it's like the same way it was with Lucic throughout his career, when you have this big guy who can play like there and who is extremely physical. The league gravitates towards that unique profile. And you saw at the Olympics, they gave him every opportunity to succeed. Often playing him in the top six, even though his ice time fluctuated in the important games. I have a hard time thinking in a year and a half from now that the conversation about Wilson has changed so dramatically and I don't know if I would even have brought him to the Olympics, quite frankly. Like I'm kind of like agreeing with Scott. Like I don't know if I love this player compared to some of these other options, but I think the league does love him, and I have a hard time not seeing him in the top 12 in whatever 18 months from now.
What happens if Ryan Leonard, the two Protis brothers, and Jordan Kyrou all become really important parts in Washington, and Wilson has a 48 or 49 point season next year instead of a 62 point season? Like, does that change the conversation for you?
No. I still think people will value the player type just so highly.
So let's.
I still think there's going to be something to the hot hand and the guys who are playing their best come selection process. Like it's.
So let's move on Bennett here first, because it sounds like Wilson's going to be the bigger point of contention here. Like I think if Connor Bedard is not on this roster in a year and a half, something has gone wrong. And especially if Sam Bennett is on it over him in a year and a half, something has gone wrong. Is that fair?
I think that's fair.
Here's a question. Will they bring Suzuki, Point, Stankoven, Bedard, and Jarvis? Like and that's Marner. It's a lot of small.
Maybe not. But I think Bedard would be above Jarvis. I think Bedard's probably above Stankoven.
Right, but that's my point. Is I think these where the friction points are going to be.
Yep. So you're saying keep Bennett and shift the conversation to against one of those other guys?
Well, now we're starting to build the roster out. So I think if we're doing that, then we're probably putting Wilson on the fourth line.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And then you're putting one of those smaller scorers on the second line. So are we putting Bedard on a line with Crosby and Marner?
I don't have a problem with that.
I have absolutely no problem with that.
So that'd be the second line. Third line of Hagel, Suzuki, Point.
Yep. I think that sounds like a great third line.
And then fourth line of Cirelli, and then I'd argue Wilson.
Yep.
And then who's the last one?
I'd put Wyatt there over Bennett.
And Stankoven would be in that conversation, and so would Jarvis too.
Yeah.
So is Johnson your number one there?
I think Wyatt's better than all of those players, and I like the idea of having another guy who's a natural center who can take draws.
Yeah. My lean is Stankoven, just based on his playoffs and just how much of a dog he is. I feel like in that 10 to 11 minute a night energy role, I think he would thrive so much.
I think for the skating, especially, like that'd be the big difference. Now he's smaller than Johnston, and I like that is.
And Johnston works.
Yeah,
they both work.
Yeah, for sure. But I just think you saw the way Stankoven competed in the playoffs, and I think like he's on a different level when it comes to his compete.
I'll go with Stankoven there, and I like that fourth line of Stankoven, Cirelli, Wilson. That sounds like a national team fourth line to me. But it does suck to leave Wyatt Johnston off. I mean, do we have a 13th forward there? I'd be happy to put him in that role. I think he's an awesome player.
Yeah, and we didn't even really mention Genther, but that's the tough part about making these national teams, right? It's like, okay, if you're bringing Genther, you're going to have to leave Braden Point at home. You're going to have to leave Connor Bedard at home, and I don't think any of us.
Yeah, all those guys are right. All those guys are right shots. Yeah.
It's a factor. All right, so
injuries could play into it, obviously.
All right, so let's go with that then. So our Team Canada forward group is McDavid, Celebrini, McKinnon, Marner, Crosby, Bedard, Hagel, Suzuki, Point, and then Stankoven, Cirelli, Wilson. That's the Team Canada forward group. We good with that? Understanding the objection, Scott?
Scott doesn't like Wilson, but yes.
I'd have Wyatt probably over Wilson and Stankoven, but I'm fine with it.
All right. Let's move on to the Canada defenseman here then. A little quicker conversation here. Matthew Schaefer, Cale Makar, Josh Morrissey, Evan Bouchard, Thomas Harley, all of those went without objection in our kind of pre-show map out. The only big debate is Devon Taves on that of the six. And Scott, your nomination for that was Owen Power.
Yeah, I just think Taves is another guy like Wilson. He's going to be, 35 2 years from now? I think Taves' role has largely been tied to Cale Makar, and I think the emergence of Matthew Schaefer will likely mean that Matthew Schaefer and Cale Makar are a D pairing. And I just think Owen Power is better than people realize. I think he's going to take a step next year. I think we saw it really in the back half of this season with his play that it's coming for him. I know he hasn't always been as competitive or as hard as you want a guy that size to be, but Owen Power is a phenomenal NHL defenseman, and I think they are going to want him to be a part of the Hockey Canada mix. And I do wonder if Taves is 35 for the World Cup and you're looking ahead to the Olympics and then suddenly he's 37, I wonder about bringing in Owen Power for a third pairing role over a guy like Taves for that reason.
It's a good point, and it's something that I think about with both of these rosters. I wonder, will the management groups for both USA and Canada view the World Cup as an end in itself, like the thing worth going everything at, or is it viewed as like a kind of a lab and testing some things for the 2030 Olympics? And I genuinely don't know, Corey, which way to view that.
I think if there's a gap, you're in win now, right? But are Taves and Power close? Like, are they?
Well, and this is kind of the argument you made about his ice time regardless of Makar. If you look at how they use Taves in the Olympics, I would guess Team Canada doesn't think this is even particularly close because I think he was their second leading defenseman in ice time at the tournament. So like to go from there to not on the team altogether, that would be a pretty drastic drop. And I'm not sure his play in the NHL has warranted it. Now the question is whether in 2 years things have changed that much. Like I would guess, I agree with Scott that I think they're going to have to bump him off the Makar pair for Schaefer at some point here. I just don't know if he goes all the way from one of their most important players to not on the team in 2 seasons.
What did you guys think of Travis Sanheim? Corey, I'll start with you here. What did you think of Travis Sanheim at the Olympics? And I mean, he's not a name that came up in our pre-show prep.
I thought he was, solid, fine enough. I don't think he moved the needle for me.
Okay. Because I mean, when I look at this on profile, I do think you're still looking for a true penalty kill guy here. And I don't know that Power is that either.
Yeah. And I thought about the way putting it together because you have Makar, you have Schaefer, who's an amazing skater. And I think when he's 23, 24, 25, will be an elite defender. But you wonder in 2 years from now if he's a shutdown guy against the best USA, Sweden players. Yeah. You have Bouchard, who obviously is not that. You have Morrissey, who I think is
he's
that either.
Yeah,
but you're right. But there's no we didn't mention Parayko, we didn't Sanheim. That's why I think Taves still has a spot in this lineup because he at least provides some of that defense there. It's a tough and I think we all didn't raise objections to Bouchard being there, but it wouldn't surprise me if he's not in the starting 6, quite frankly, just for all the reasons you just stated.
I think Bouchard's the only player within that group of 6 who you don't want on a penalty kill at a best on best event, though. Like Makar can penalty kill. Morrissey can penalty kill. Harley can penalty kill. Power could penalty kill. I think by then you're comfortable with Schaefer penalty killing at that level. Like, I don't think there's a shortage of PKers there. Bouchard's not penalty killing for you, but
I think they can penalty kill. I don't know if they're going to excel in that, nor do I think are they going to excel in like being shut down guys against like the best of best players in the world.
It's also those are like the hardest minutes, most taxing minutes you can ask someone to play, and I do think that there's a trade-off. If you're going to ask Cale Makar and Matthew Schaefer to do that, you're going to get less from them at 5-on-5 by doing so, and that's where that's what I see. Like Sanheim is probably the name that I'm finding myself wanting to argue for here. And that would.
But then who do you bring home? But then who do you leave at home? Like, are you leaving Bouchard at home for Sanheim? Like, that's a big talent.
It does feel extreme. That does feel extreme. So I don't know.
I think that's one where we kind of see where these guys are 2 years from now. Like, where is Morrissey 2 years from now? Where is Bouchard 2 years from now? Like, do they maintain this level of play? Because if they are, it's hard to leave them at home. But if they drop off a little bit, then maybe you kind of find an excuse to bring one of those, more well-rounded players.
Yeah. So, all right. So where are we going to land on this then? Because I think between Taves and Power, I think I lean to Taves, but like, I don't know that Taves is really the exact kind of player I'm talking about either, even though he's another one that like can do it. But are you like going into a tournament?
Do you want to leave Harley at home then for one of those guys?
I was just about to ask the same question about Harley. Like maybe it's Harley and we haven't even talked. None of us have raised Chychrun either, but Chychrun was excellent last. Like I could see Chychrun or Power in the mix over a Harley potentially.
I do think Harley's going to bounce back.
I do.
Based on his last year, he would be the one to cut. It wasn't like a wow year for him by any means. I do think he's going to bounce back though, so I don't know. But that's one way to do this.
Yes. Do we want to maybe just keep Taves and put Parayko back on for Harley?
Scott's not going to want Parayko, right, Scott?
You're the tiebreaker, Max.
My lean is to go to Sanheim, but if you guys have no interest in that,
I'll go Sanheim then. So let's do Taves Sanheim as the 6.
And leave Harley home. Are you okay with? Scott doesn't like this at all.
I don't like it at all.
We're bullying this poor guy right now.
I know it's he's like, where's Chris Peters?
Yeah.
If it's Harley versus Sanheim, I'm just taking Harley. I think.
Okay, well then, would you leave Harley Taves? Is that if that's the compromise then? All right, we'll leave Harley Taves.
All right.
All right, we went in a big circle there.
When Power makes the team, though, I want to remember this conversation.
Very fair, very fair. Then the last one's in goal. We have Binnington and Kemper. I'm not going with Binnington here, Corey. Like Scott's suggestions are Greaves and Thompson, but like I know Binnington's track record. In 2 more years, I can't imagine it's still there.
Hofer played more games last year. I think Hofer's going to be their guy by the end of this season. You're not bringing a backup goalie with his own organization as the starting, and we've been talking about a couple of guys who are going to be 35. I think he's going to be 37 2 years from now. Like, I know they love him. I know he's been good for them in a couple of really big games at 2 different events. He was terrible in the NHL last year. Like I just see zero path for him. I think and they clearly like Greaves. Like they clearly have time for Greaves. I think Thompson and Greaves feel like they'll be the guys for me. I just think the Binningtons and the Kempers and those guys are going to sort of gradually be aged out here.
I don't really have strong opinions on this one. What do you want to do, Max?
I think Thompson over Binnington is the switch I would make. I'm fine with Kemper. Like Greaves, I think has a chance to get there, but I do have a hard time projecting.
Greaves' numbers are phenomenal, like among the best in the league over the last couple of years. Yeah, he'll be 2 years older. Like he's going to be the starter in Columbus next year. And
with everything on the line, do you see Canada going with a 6-0 goalie with as short a track record as he has?
If he's the backup to Thompson, I don't see why you don't give him an opportunity to get into some games and get ready for the Olympics potentially. You have to find that next guy. And I'm not convinced that any of the young Canadian goalies are going to be there come 4 years from now at the Olympics either. Like it's going to be a Greaves type that they have to go to.
I think Thompson's the one for me, and I don't really have a strong feeling between Kemper and Greaves for the 2.
Yeah, I'll give. We can just give Scott Greaves. He's so passionate about it as the 2.
He was due.
Appreciate it.
All right, let's now go to the reigning Olympic gold medalist, Corey, Team USA. And if Canada's in an interesting position in how they go with their roster, USA, you could argue, is in an even more interesting position. They took a philosophy that took some heat. They left some really talented scorers and offensive players at home. They come back with a gold medal. It did not always look that convincing. And I think that puts them in a really interesting spot here. The age of these players, I think, is a key factor here, though, because there's a lot of guys who were in their prime then, still going to be squarely in their prime 2 years from now, and even 4 years from now.
Yeah, given that they won and given the age of a lot of their players, I don't expect that this roster is going to see significant turnover 2 years from now. I think it's going to be 80 to 90% of the same players that we saw at the Olympics will be at the World Cup. There'll be, one, two, three forward spots up for mix, maybe one D spot, maybe.
Yep.
And then maybe a backup goalie spot, and that's probably it, I think.
So let's start with the forwards here and the guys that we agree on as returners. Jack Hughes, Jack Eichel, Matt Boldy, Matthew Tkachuk, Austin Matthews, Brady Tkachuk, Jake Gensel, and Dylan Larkin. Those are the guys those are the 8 that we're locking in. That leaves 4 spots.
With the caveat that Brady better play better for me. Like, Brady
I think he's more likely to be the captain of this team than to be cut from it.
I disagree.
That's totally fair. I get it. He did not have a good finish down the stretch. And the thing that freaked me out, by the way, just as a tangent, did you see the clip of like his vision going? That scared the crap out of me when you saw that. Did you see that late in the season? Look it up. It's wild. All right. Let's go to the first debate here. Let's talk about the 2 returning guys that I think people are going to be the most fired up about. Brock Nelson and JT Miller. These guys were good players. They played their roles. They were controversial picks for the Olympic team. But they're going to be 2 more years older. And the mobility, I think, in Miller's case was already getting to be an issue. Nelson, I think, is going to be, 35 by this World Cup? Yeah.
Nelson, the Miller one, I could see him, I think that's one that I can see the argument to move on from. Nelson's going to be tough because I thought, one, he was quite good at the Olympics. He had a really good NHL season. And the role, I thought he did a really good job filling that role. So the question is, if you're not bringing him, who's going to be out there that will, I guess, be better in that role down the middle?
Shane Pinto.
He moves better than Pinto, though, doesn't he?
I would disagree, and I think
Nelson's a good skater, but
I think Pinto's an equal already defensively, and by then will be Shane Pinto was on my Selke ballot this year. I think Shane Pinto's one of the best defensive centers in the league.
He's a good player. I like him.
I think he's
reasonable.
Yeah.
He took the toughest quality of competition in the NHL last season as well. Shane Pinto did, and so for him to get really strong 2-way results, he's kind of the big bot. To me, he's your future Brock Nelson, and I think slotting him in that 4C spot does make a lot of sense, Scott.
So what do you want to do? Do you want to keep Nelson or put Pinto in Max?
I want to put Pinto in.
All right. We didn't mention him in the locks, but I don't think any of us raised any contention that Logan Cooley has to be somewhere on this team.
Well, he's not a returner, but yes, he's one of the guys that we penciled in, and I think he makes a ton of sense too. And he could ultimately be an option at 4C for this team. I think he can play that kind of game. But yeah, we've got him penciled in.
Or maybe by then he's your 3C and Larkin's your 4C, right?
Yep.
There's flexibility there.
I think we like him on the wing too, just because of the speed he has. He can kind of go out and get him. So then we leave that one spot on the fourth. We're going to get to the third line because the third line I think will be a really interesting conversation. But the fourth line, then we have one more spot here. I think JT Miller will be out, and then which of these other guys are in? I think we're talking about Nyes, we're talking about Beniers, we're talking about Leonard. Is there any preference for any of those among that group for us? I think from the names that we've just said, my lean is Nyes. But I think it's really close.
I feel similarly. I want to see what Ryan Leonard looks like in a year and a half, obviously, but that's not the benefit we have today.
Yeah, I think it's between those two.
I could imagine Jackson Blake in that kind of a role if he continues to take steps here. I could imagine Jackson as a 4th liner, but I would probably lean Nyes. I'm certainly I'm out on Miller 2 years from now.
Yeah, I want a heavy player who, yes, can score, and I think both Nyes and Leonard can score, but also is just going to be really committed to their role. And everything I've seen from both Nyes and Leonard suggests that that's them. Nyes is a little more proven today. That's where I would lean to him as well, Corey. But I want to leave the door open for Ryan Leonard. I mean, Beniers was the other kind of name we kicked around, and it's possible he might even, in a year and a half, we might be talking about him the same way we're talking about Pinto and for that spot. But my lean, I think, would be right now for Nyes.
Yep.
Okay, so we've got Cooley, Nyes, centered
Pinto.
by Pinto as our fourth line.
Yep, which I think is a very good line.
Yeah.
So then we have a third line right now with Larkin in between Gensel and question mark. And that question mark, I think, has a lot of options. Cutter Gauthier, Cole Caulfield, Jason Robertson, Kyle Connor, Clayton Keller, maybe even Jackson Blake. A lot of really good American forwards out there to pick from. Didn't even mention Trevor Zegras. My lean is Cutter Gauthier, the 6'3" guy who can wheel, who scored 40 goals. I would guess that's what they would pick too. But for that one spot, what would you guys go with?
I think you have to find a way for one of those three sort of really, really productive players to be on. I would probably lean any of Caulfield, Robertson, Connor, and would probably lean Caulfield before Robertson and Connor. Those are three of the four. If you look at the NHL scoring table last year, the top four scoring Americans were Jack Eichel, Cole Caulfield, Jason Robertson, and Kyle Connor. And there's a scenario here where we have one of the four highest scoring Americans in the NHL last year actually on the roster, and three of them not on the roster.
Well, that was the case at the Olympics.
Yeah, Connor's gotten a couple of kicks of the can here, and he's kind of failed every time. So, I kind of have a hard time seeing him get another top 9 spot.
I would lean Caulfield over Gauthier personally.
I will also add, I think Alex DeBrincat can get into that conversation too, especially if we're going to talk about Jackson Blake. DeBrincat's got much more of a tenacity to his game than I think people realize. 40 goal scorer, 85-point player. He's only going to be 30 years old at this tournament. He's another one that I would raise. But of the names you said, Scott, to me, Caulfield is the one because of the skating. We also saw, the 3-on-3 wizard that did come into play in the Olympics, and that they could have used him multiple occasions. So
they don't have a ton of flank guys on the power play here either. Jack Hughes runs it, obviously, but they've got a lot of bigger guys. Their power play is going to have the Kachucks, who are more net front bumper guys. I do think Caulfield on the flank on one of those two power plays is an asset on top of what I think he can contribute offensively at 5-on-5.
All right, so let's go with Caulfield.
And there's built-in chemistry with Hughes and some of these guys as well.
Yeah, and that would actually be an interesting thing, is do you actually end up having to kind of rearrange the lines? Because I think that would be something to potentially take advantage of. But let's go with Caulfield then, Scott, if you're in support of that.
Yeah, I like that too.
All right. Moving on to the defenseman for Team USA.
Gauthier can be our 13th, our imaginary 13th forward.
Imaginary 13th, yes. Moving on to the defenseman here. Corey, you mentioned at the age early on. That's very true on the defense here, because you still got prime age Quinn Hughes. You still got a prime age Zach Werenski, a rising into his prime Jake Sanderson, a rising into his prime Brock Faber, and a prime age Charlie McAvoy. I have a hard time seeing any of those guys not on this roster. I have a hard time seeing any of those guys not on the 2030 roster. And that really only leaves one spot on the blue line.
And that's kind of where this debate gets interesting, because you look at Jacob Slavin's age and you're like, he's the one guy who could theoretically age out. But will he, given that he's been very good for them in the last 2 tournaments, that he was he just won a Stanley Cup. Now, the name I nominated was Keandre Miller, because I thought in that playoff run, I thought Miller was just as good as Slavin, if not better. But there is a body of work to consider there. And I think it makes for a very fascinating debate. I think you lean towards Slavin, Max, correct?
Yes, I would just go with the proven thing. And we'll see what happens as he ages, if he loses a step. But to me, I look at Jacob Slavin as a gold standard defensive defenseman in this league. He's been there, done that. He was an important player for them. I have a hard time taking him off.
Yeah, I think it's reasonable to keep him, too.
You know who was also really good in the playoffs?
Lane Hutson. Look, I get it.
Lane Hutson is already. Keandre Miller was a really nice story last year. Had a really good year. I do wonder if Keandre Miller is a true best-on-best player. Lane Hutson is a better hockey player, a significantly better hockey player, and had a significantly better year than Jacob Slavin and Keandre Miller.
If I was picking a
And I
number
know
one
you're-
defenseman for an NHL team, I would take Lane Hutson at this point. But we're picking the 6th defenseman on the Olympic team.
Who says he has to be the 6th defenseman? Why can't Brock Faber play on the 3rd pair?
So
It's gonna be tough to take a guy who was a top 4 D on your gold medalist, and now he's 2 years
It's
older
not
and
tough
probably
when that player
better.
is Lane effing Hutson. We're talking about a
So,
world
okay,
class. We're talking
let me
about one of
twist
the
this.
best, already one of the best players in the world.
Scott, you know who also had a really good playoffs? Jackson Lacombe, who Team USA has already picked over Lane Hutson for an international
No
team duty
chance.
once. He did have a great playoffs.
I don't think we realize how good Lane Hutson was last
We
year.
do.
Yeah. The issue is if Quinn Hughes, hurts his knee or whatever kind of thing, and then Hudson
He's the guy.
He goes
Yes.
right in kind of thing. But I think on a team that already has whatever, Matthews, the Hughes, the Kachucks, Ruedski, if you bring Hudson, is he on the first power play unit?
No.
I think he's in the mix.
Over
But
Quinn
I'm
Hughes?
I'm asking you. Who's your
I
first
think
power
there's
play?
I'm not saying it's the decision I'd make, but there is an argument to be made that Lane Hudson
But
is
make the
a
decision.
more
Tell me
dynamic
who your-
power
tell
play
me who your
quarterback
top power
than Quinn
play
Hughes.
is.
Especially
Tell
if
me
you
who
want to
your
free up Quinn Hughes to play more at
Scott,
5-on-5.
answer the damn question. Who's the
I'll
top
make the
power
case
play?
I'll make the case for Lane Hudson over Quinn Hughes.
Oh, okay. Well, I think that's crazy. But anyways,
It's hard for me to see. He's awesome.
How is that crazy?
because Quinn Hughes has won Norris Trophy. Well, won a Norris Trophy. Sorry,
And he can,
It's not
and
even
he can
just the
play his heart
hardware,
out
it's-
on PP2 and play a shit ton of minutes at 5-on-5.
That's like that's going too far. Like Lane's awesome. He has exceeded so many people's expectations, including mine. He's an amazing defenseman. I think you could definitely make the case for him as a top 10 D in the league. But in this role, like I don't see how
think
I
you
could put
could
him
make a
over
case-
He's not over Quinn Hughes for one, and he's
For
not
power
over,
play, I'm not talking about in terms of the minutes you're playing him over the course of a 60-minute game.
Wait, so do you think Quinn
there's-
Hughes
there's
is good on the
three
power
defen-
play?
There's three. No, Quinn Hughes can be on the power play. He can be on PP1. He can be on PP2. The top 3 power play quarterbacks in the league are Cale Makar, Lane Hutson, and Quinn Hughes. Like those are
And
the
Quinn
three guys.
Hughes just won you a gold medal, so why are you going away from him?
Because Lane Hutson is the most dynamic player at that position
More than
In
McCarr,
that
more than
role.
Hughes?
in the conversation.
Okay, that's not what you said.
But okay, so you guys talk about PK. You don't want your top guys on the PK because you need them more at 5-on-5. Why not
Yeah.
have Quinn Hughes on PP2
Because
so
the
that you can
PP is
use
not
him more at
taxing like the PK is. The PK is taxing because you're playing defense the whole time. You're running around chasing. You're taking shots to the legs.
Do you
The
think there's a
PP
big gap between Quinn Hughes and Lane Hutson on the power play?
I think Quinn Hughes is probably the best defenseman in the NHL. Period.
I agree.
I think once they get set up in the zone, they're similar. But I think Hughes' skating is like way better, and his ability to gain the zone, I think, is way better. But I think once they're in the zone and they have the puck on their stick, then it gets real close.
I fully get how much it sucks for Lane Hutson to be a top 10 defender in the league and not make the top 6 for his own country, but it's because of role deployment. It's not because he's better than Charlie McAvoy as a number 1 defenseman in the NHL.
Just tell Montreal when they play Columbus, when they play Minnesota, just go after Werenski. Just go after Hughes. Just take one of them out and he's in. Like, that's basically how it's going to work.
I like it's all moot to me because
I think
I'm
he
sticking
should-
with Slavin. Like it's like this is like my conversation is just I'm sticking with Slavin in that role.
Right.
Like,
Let's go back.
I just can't believe we got to a
let-
point where we're debating Quinn Hughes as the number 1 power play quarterback.
Let's get
For
away
what,
from the
for what it's worth, I think by
philosophical-
the end of next year, Lane Hutson might be a top 5 defenseman in the league instead of a top 10.
He might
defenseman in
be.
the league.
He might
But
be.
let's get away from the philosophical debate for a second. Let's talk about what USA will actually do. Scott, do you think USA will bring Lane if Hughes and Werenski are available?
If
They'll put
they're
him in the top
think-
6.
If they're thinking about the Olympics, I think, and you're talking about Jacob Slavin versus Lane Hutson, I think you absolutely have to bring Lane Hutson.
That's why I brought it up earlier, because if you're viewing this as a lab and as a training ground and an experimentation thing, this is the perfect environment to test Scott's theory. But if you view this as an end in itself, then I think you're bringing Jacob Slavin.
Yeah, I just wonder if the same team that didn't bring Fox is going to do that. Like, it's basically going to be the same management group, probably, like plus or minus one or two guys. So I do wonder about that.
If Lane Hutson was Canadian, he'd be their number. He'd be in their top 4, no doubt. Like he's in there over Bouchard. Makar's still there, so I think Makar's still probably power play 1. But he's in their top 4, no doubt. But it's like I have a hard time seeing him over Hughes, who I think is the best D in the NHL, and Werenski, who's the reigning Norris winner, and just set up the golden goal in the Olympics. I really just have a hard time seeing how he takes it from either of them.
I don't.
Yeah. But to your point earlier now, like about Slavin and Kanye Miller, they were both 25, 26-minute night guys on a team that just won the Stanley Cup, and Slavin just won a gold medal. So I'm
not going away from Slavin. That's like that's where I'm staying.
So despite all this,
I don't think it's inconceivable that Lane Hutson has an Erik Karlsson 100-point season at some point in the next 3 or 4 years. And I think that, like, if that happened next year, if Lane Hutson had 95 to 100 points next year, there's no way. And he's young. And you're looking ahead to not just the next Olympics, but even the Olympics after that. Like, I think you're crazy. You're crazy not to take him.
Yeah,
it's conceivable.
That,
I agree. Yeah. I don't disagree that it's possible that he can do that, but he hasn't done it, and I'm not gonna put him over guys who have done it and continue to do it.
He finished
he might do it.
What do you mean he hasn't done it? He was one of the best players in the playoffs and finished.
You just said it's conceivable. He's Erik Karlsson 100 points. He hasn't done that yet.
He still just had one of the best seasons in the league.
Yes, no one's denying that. Like, you're arguing with a wall here. Like, I'm not denying that he's awesome. I'm denying that he's better than Quinn Hughes.
No, you're denying that he's better than 6 guys.
No, I'm not. I'm denying that he's better for the number 6 role than a couple guys.
Why not play Brock Faber on the third pairing? Like, if you're obsessed,
it's possible.
You can.
I think Faber's a little overrated. But
you argued him on PP1.
Yeah, I think Faber's
PP1, PP2.
Why not play him 60 minutes a night then? Why not just bring one Hutson and play him every position on the ice?
No. There is something to playing him on the power play and freeing up one of Werenski or Hughes to play more at 5-on-5. Like, I don't know why that's
I disagree that the power play is the place to sacrifice from. Like, you want to protect your stars from the
I don't
PK
think you're
because
sacrificing. I think you're upgrading potentially.
You keep doing that. You keep saying it and then walking it back. Like, you're upgrading potentially. He's there in the conversation. Like, we have to make a decision here. Is it Quinn Hughes or is it Lane Hutson on PP1? It's Quinn Hughes. Like, how is it not?
I think it could be. I think it could be Lane Hutson. And if it's not, it's Lane on PP2. Like, Lane's better than Zach for PP2.
But that's where the conversation gets tricky, and it's why Jason Robertson and Caulfield got let home. It's like a guy who's second power play and gets 8 to 10 even strength minutes is not a really valuable role on a national team. Whether you disagree with that is kind of irrelevant, because if you look at the history of how these teams get constructed, guys don't get brought onto these teams to play that type of role. If you're going to play 10 to 12 even straight minutes a night, he has to be on first power play.
At this point, I want to see it just because I want to see it and settle this debate. Like, I'm sick of having this hypothetical where we get to pretend like you get to, have it every which way. Like, I just want to see it now. I'm going to vote for Hutson because I just want to see it. And
maybe you put 2D on one of the power plays. And why can't you bring Lane Hutson and have Lane Hutson playing 12 minutes a night and break open a gold medal game playing against softer competition? Why would you not want that on your roster?
Wait, a gold medal game against softer competition?
Against the third pairing or fourth line of a Team Canada? Yeah, that's softer competition.
The soft competition that we just picked for Team Canada was... Who was it? Anthony Cirelli, Logan Stankoven, and who was the third forward here?
You don't think Lane Hutson can cook those guys on any given shift?
I have a hard time calling it soft competition, and I have a hard time saying anyone's cooking those guys.
You want players who can win their matchups, who can make a play to break open a game.
Yeah,
I think it's.
Don't disagree with that.
Then why isn't Lane Hutson that guy for you?
Okay, so again, just
no matter what the minutes.
I feel like we went off track here.
He plays 29 minutes a night for a contending playoff team.
Yeah. So do everyone that we've mentioned.
Well,
not 28 minutes because they're forwards, but like
yeah, and I'm not sure every single one of them's on a contender, but I get what you're saying. But I get what you're saying.
Well, Cirelli, Wilson, like the guys that he's talking about is the soft competition. Right. Yeah. Or the or the guys that we're directly comparing him to, like Slavin. Like that's a pretty good team that he's on and plays a lot of minutes on.
Let's go backwards here because again, the exercise, which I think we've kind of maybe lost this.
Yeah, predictably got derailed by the name we always get predictably derailed by.
Is predicting what Team USA will actually do. Now, I think I kind of agree with Scott that I think Faber might be getting a little overrated, and he probably got elevated because of who the manager was there, and because he also played really well, particularly in that Four Nations. I didn't think his Olympics he was as good as the Four Nations, but he still was very good. You could argue that is he one of the 4 best American defensemen? I mean, if you're doing a player ranking, he's not.
In the NHL, he is. In the NHL, he is.
You again, you're doing so Hughes, Rowensky, and then is he above Hutson for you?
He's Hutson and Sanderson. I think I'd go Sanderson next as 3, and then Hutson would be the 4th best NHL defenseman there.
So, but I said you don't think he's one of the top 4 USA defensemen.
He would
but
be
he's probably going to be a top
4.
Yeah, Faber. Yeah. Yes, but he's probably the top 4 on this team, in part because he's a right shot, and just to do how well he played on the national team. But yeah, we could see him get bumped down to the 3rd pair. But I still think you're putting, like I said, I think. I'm with you, Max. I can see they are going to keep Slavin unless he really falls off in the next year or 2.
Yeah. And if you wanted to do,
and then Sanderson, and then are we leaving, who am I missing here exactly? Like are we cutting Faber or you're cutting Sanderson for Hutson? Those are tough for me to do.
I'm not cutting them.
I would just have it be Hughes, McAvoy, Werenski, Faber, Sanderson, Hutson, and not bring Slavin or Miller.
But why would you not want a pair like Slavin Sanderson? Like in
why
this
not
kind
just
of
have
tournament?
that pair? Why not just have that 3rd pair be Faber Sanderson?
And so then
and then you play Hughes, and then you play Hughes, McAvoy, Werenski, and Hutson in your top 4.
And so the 2nd pair would be Werenski and Hutson.
Yep. And then Hughes and McAvoy.
Yeah.
For a pair that's going to play that many minutes, I just would rather have, like, Werenski already brings so many of the elements Hutson does. I would just want the guy who's a killer defender, and that's Sanderson or Faber.
Maybe you play Sanderson in the top 4 then. So maybe it's Hughes, McAvoy, Werenski, Sanderson, and it's Faber and Hutson as your 3rd pairing.
Let's keep in mind for everyone who's listening, we're using NHL lineup criteria for this one because it's the World Cup. If this was a double IHF competition and we could bring both Slavin and Hutson, this would be a much easier conversation. But we're trying to fit 7 into 6 here instead. But if we got 7 choices, I feel like this would have been a much shorter conversation.
Yeah, very
agreed.
For sure.
And then Rangers fans would have been yelling at us about Adam Fox.
What a memory that is when that was the big debate.
What are you leaning, Max?
We can go Hutson Faber as the 3rd pair. That's an acceptable compromise to me.
Yeah, I feel like I'm convinced. Scott yelled loud enough.
I don't think there's ever been an F-bomb dropped on this show, so Max might have had a first there.
Won't be the last.
I could see the argument that Hutson is going to be in his prime then, and Slavin's probably going to be Slavin's probably still going to be really, really good, but maybe the skating starts to slow down there a little bit. I just
the thing is McAvoy's health, I guess, is
yeah.
McAvoy may
even
not
really
be on this
about
group
McAvoy,
because of his health.
Yeah,
but he's an all situation stud. So
yes, yeah, he'll be on the team.
All right, so I'm good with Hughes, McAvoy, Werenski, Sanderson, Hutson, Faber. I can live with that one.
I do think that NHL people will.
But I'm not putting them on PP1.
Yeah.
That's fine.
I think NHL people will look at the 2 blue lines we constructed for Canada and USA and say that's not what's going to happen. Because I think we gravitated more towards offense and the point-producing puck movers and how we constructed it. And I'm guessing 1 or 2 of those guys that we think are for sure on that team are not for sure on that team.
I also think you're just
Canada?
talking.
Yeah.
I think you're talking about two completely different calibers of blue lines as well. Like this
Oh
American
yeah, for
group
sure. No, it's just how we ended up getting there, despite different ways.
I just think with Canada, you run out of names a little bit sooner. Like those guys are just on because they're the best players, whereas the best players might not be on for Team USA, which is the conversation, frankly, that we've just spent 20 minutes.
It's kind of
way
funny
too
because I
long.
thought because Canada's probably has a better team, I think, on paper, but their blue line is like just not as convincing.
Yeah,
I think it's why USA won. I know that everyone wants to make it all about Hellebuck, but I do think, and I know Canada got their shots, they missed some chances, but I think when you have a blue line like that, you always give yourself a chance to win any kind of game.
Speaking of which, USA goalies.
Oh God, I thought we were done.
Hellebuck's going to be taking his walker into the net, I think.
You can't go away from him. Yeah.
No, it's going to be Hellebuck. Even at whatever he'll be, 35?
Hellebuck's.
It'll be
I went
Hellebuck.
on it. Well, we could just recap this because we know where we're going with this. I said Ottinger as the 2. You two said Swayman. We're going to go Swayman as the 2.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Swayman's
All
the 2
right.
for me.
All right.
Thanks, Cora, for wrapping that up.
Lovely conversation. Great job,
Scott,
guys.
I love you. It was never
Yeah,
personal.
back at you, pal.
All right. That's going to do it for us. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Athletic Hockey Show Prospect Series. We'll be back with you for more soon. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe and ring the bell to stay informed and catch new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And in the meantime, you can join our Discord community. We'll see you there.